All right, so what we have is I'm going to add 3.14 plus 2. All right, so the most important thing that you'll need to remember when adding 3.14 plus 2, the most important thing that you'll need to remember when adding those decimals is to line up the decimal point. So let's rewrite 2 to be 2.0. We need to line up our decimal points. So we have 3.14 plus 2.0. There's no difference between 2 and 2.0. 2 is the same thing as 2.0. So now that the decimals are lined up, what you're going to do is just add down. All right, so you have 4 plus 0 is 4. 1 plus 0 is 1. You bring your decimal point down, and 3 plus 2 is 5. Final answer, 5.14. All right, so the important thing when adding decimals is to, one, line your decimals up. In this particular problem, one of my numbers, 2, did not have a decimal in it. So I rewrote 2 to be its equivalent in decimal form, which is 2.0. Once again, the original problem had 2, but I had to rewrite the 2 to be 2.0. All right, and then once you line the decimals up, just add like you normally would, and that's no problem. All right, so let's look at another problem where we have to add decimals. Where if you have 2.25 plus 3.14. 2.25 plus 3.14. Again, the most important thing when adding decimals, 2.25, 3.14, is to line the decimals up. All right, so let's write this problem vertically. 2.25 plus 3.14. You add the decimals. The decimals are already lined up. There's no need to add a 0 here. And then you just add like you normally would. 5 plus 4 is 9. 2 plus 1 is 3. And 2 plus 3 is 5. Final answer, 5.39. Final answer. All right, so again, the most important thing when you're adding decimals is to line your decimals up. Each of your decimals should be on top of the other. And if they're not, you probably made a mistake. And if a number that you're working with does not have a decimal in it, you rewrite that whole number to be a decimal. Just take that whole number and then you put your decimal point and then however many zeros you think you'll need. Let's take a look at another problem until you call in. We'll just keep going. All right, so there's a problem. We have 12.48 plus 4.6. You're adding decimals. The most important thing when adding decimals is to line your decimals up. All right, so you have 12.48. I've got a 4.6 here. This decimal on the 4.6 should be right beneath this decimal here in 12.48. So I have 4.6. I'll put a 0 there. All right. But the most important thing when adding decimals is that these decimals are on top of each other. Notice how these two decimals right here, when I was adding, they're right on top of each other. Notice how these decimals right here are right on top of each other. All right, so now let's add. 8 plus 0 is 8. 4 plus 6 is 10. Carry the 1. 2 plus 4 is 6. Plus 1 is 7. And then you drop 1 plus 0 is 1. You bring your decimal down. That would be another area of maybe a common mistake, forgetting to bring your decimal down. All right, so final answer, 17.08. Final answer. We're adding decimals. That's all we're doing. Adding decimals. Sometimes the way I teach my students is I'll do something wrong, okay? And then I'll ask my students, what did I do that's wrong? Sometimes we can use that as a learning opportunity. So let's take a look at the problem. The problem I started with, I'm going to do something wrong, and what I want you to do is I want you to call in. Tell me what I did wrong. Okay, here we go. Let's look at the first problem we did. Let's do something wrong. All right, so the original problem, 3.14 plus 2. That's my original problem, 3.14 plus 2. Let me show you what someone might do that's wrong. All right, so they have 3.14 plus 2. All right, 3.14 plus 2. And then you have 6, and then you have 1, then you have 3, and you bring a decimal point down. Final answer, 3.16. That's wrong. That's very wrong. All right? And I want you to look at it good. Look at it very good. And then I want you to call in. I want you to tell me what I did wrong. You call in right now, 312-738-1060. And you learn from your mistakes. That's how the people who write these standardized tests, that's how they write the tests. They'll do the problem, and they'll do the problem correctly, and that might be letter A or letter B or letter C. And then they'll attempt the same problem, and they'll intentionally make a very common mistake. And they'll make 4 of those mistakes. They'll make one of the choices correct, the one that's done properly, and then they'll intentionally make 4 very common mistakes and then offer it to the student. Well, you've got to know how to do the problems. They're not trying to fool you. They're just trying to make sure you know exactly what you're doing to solve the problem. Call in 312-738-1060 to let me know the mistake that I made. Until you call in, I'm going to move on. Let's look at one more problem where we add decimals. One more problem where we're adding decimals. Let's take a look. All right, so we've got the number 7 plus 4.009. 7 plus 4.009. Again, when adding decimals, it's very, very important that you line your decimals up. Notice how that 7 is without a decimal. Okay, someone who's struggling with decimals would say, wait a minute, I've got to add decimals. You're emphasizing, you've said about 4 times now, I need to line the decimals up. But the 7 doesn't have a decimal. How am I going to line up a decimal when I don't have a decimal to line up? That's a good question. What you need to do is rewrite the whole number 7. Rewrite the whole number 7 so you don't change the value of the 7, but it has a decimal that's necessary to adding decimals so that you can line them up. Let's take a look. All right, so we have 4.009, and we want to add 7, but let's rewrite 7 to be 7.000. There's no difference between 7. There's no difference between 7 and 7.0. It's the same value. But now you can line up those decimals. You add normally, you get 9, 0, 0, and you get 11. 11.009, final answer. 11.009. Okay, so we've done 4 problems. You should be a master, an expert at adding decimals.